Are you ready for the video lesson for lesson 5.3? I hope so, because we are about to get started. So lesson 5.3 is on comparing integers. So what we're basically going to do, and we've done this on our homework, so hopefully you have a head start, is we're going to compare integers with greater than, less than, or equal to, and we're going to order them least to greatest, greatest to least. So we're going to start you off when we're comparing integers, and I'm going to show you two ways. One is using a number line, and the other is following these two rules, which we'll write down in a second. So first off, in example 1, if you are using a number line, it says we have to fill in the circle with less than, greater than, or equal to make it true, and we're comparing 12 to negative 4. So if you use a number line, here's what's kind of easy about it. You find 12 on a number line right here, and you find a negative 4 on a number line right here. And everything that's to the right is greater. And if it's to the left, it's less. So as you can see, since negative 4 is to the left, it's going to be less, and 12 is going to be greater. So we would say 12 is greater than negative 4. Now, that's great if you have a number line, but you probably don't feel like drawing a number line. So now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you these two rules, and then I'll have you pause the video and write them down in your book. So the first rule says positives are always greater than negatives. All right? The second rule says when comparing negatives, think in reverse, because negatives are like the mirror image. Looking in a mirror of positives, everything is backwards of what you would normally do. So take a second, pause the video, and write these two rules down, and then we'll continue. Okay, so let's continue. So now let me show you here. I'm going to use those two rules to help us through A, B, and C. So if you think you can do A, B, and C, then you could always pause it and do them and restart it. But if you're not sure, do them with me. All right, let's start with A. So notice we're comparing two negatives. That means we're going to use rule 2 that you wrote down. So remember I said when comparing two negatives, you want to think in reverse. And here's what I mean. If these guys were positives, 3 would be less than 5, right? That's normal. You know 3 is smaller than 5. But since they're negatives, you have to think in reverse. That means negative 3 is greater than negative 5. Okay? In problem B. Now, I know I said positives are always greater than negatives, and I know you're thinking 0 is not a positive or a negative, but you treat 0 like a positive because 0 is bigger than every negative as well. So in this case, negative 5 is less than 0. And in problem C, positives are always greater than negatives. Okay. Now we're going to go down and show you a real-world example, and then we'll have you do problem D. So in the real-world example, it says Justin has a score of negative 4 on the Trouville trivia game. Desiree's score is negative 5. Write an inequality to compare the scores, then explain the meaning of the inequality. Now, an inequality is just a problem like A, B, and C. They are inequalities, just with the answer in it. So let me show you what I mean. So Justin has a score of a negative 4. So I'm going to write negative 4, and I'm going to put a J underneath it for Justin. And Desiree's score is a negative 5. So I'm going to put a D for her. Now, to get the inequality, you have to actually solve it. So remember to think in reverse since we're dealing with two negatives. So this is how you do it. Normally, 4 is less than 5 if they were positive. But since they're negative, negative 4 is greater than negative 5. Now, what does that mean? Now you have to explain the meaning. So if I were explaining the meaning of this, since negative 4 is greater, that would mean that Justin's score, was it Justin? I forget. Yeah, Justin. Justin has a higher score than Desiree. Okay, so this is your inequality, and this is where you explain the meaning of your inequality. All right? That's what you're going to have to do in problem D. And you could, if you have this written down, this could be your model to help you. So problem D, I want you to pause the video, do D on your own, and then restart it when you're done. Go. Okay, let's see how you did. So in D, it says the temperature on Tuesday was 2 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature on Wednesday was -2 degrees Fahrenheit. Write an inequality to compare the temperatures. Explain the meaning of the inequality. So let me start with this. Tuesday, I'm going to put a T. It was 2 degrees. And Wednesday, I'll put a W. It was -2 degrees. So when I write my inequality, remember positives are always greater than negatives. So that's my inequality right here, which I'll circle. Now, did you write a sentence explaining the meaning? If not, make sure you do it. So if I were writing a sentence here, I would just say, Tuesday's temperature is warmer than Wednesday's temperature. That's it, because a +2 is greater than a -2, so it's going to be warmer on Tuesday. All right, now you don't have to have my exact words, but if you have something like that, you should be fine. Let's go on to the page, because now is where we're going to put a whole set of integers in least to greatest order. And I'll show you how our 2 rules on the previous page apply to these problems. So first, let me show you how to use a number line. Number lines actually, if you take a second to draw them, come in handy for these. Because it says order this set of integers, -9, 6, -3, 0, from least to greatest. So if you put them on a number line, so I'll highlight them on the number line. Here's my -9, my -3, my 0, and my 6. The number line puts them in least to greatest order for you, because the ones on the left are going to be smallest. So you'd have -9, but followed by the next one, which is -3, followed by the next one, which is 0, and then the one furthest to the right is greatest, 6. So if you wanted to write a number line, it pretty much does it for you, which is kind of cool. Now, let me go and show you how to use the rules, because this is really how you're going to be doing it more, and I'm going to make a little bit of workspace first. Okay, so now I have some workspace. So here's what I do first. There's 4 integers. I draw 4 blanks, just because it gives me a spot to put all of my numbers, and I don't have to I can start anywhere I want. And here's the next thing I do. I start by taking care of my positive integers. And I know 0 is not positive, but you treat it like a positive. So 0 and 6 are going to be the biggest. So I'm going to put 0 here and 6 here. And then I'm going to forget about them. I don't want to think about them anymore because they're easy. I got them out of the way. And now I'm going to think about the negatives. Remember, the rule for comparing negatives is you think in reverse. So right here is going to be my smallest integer. So take a look here. If these guys were positive, 9 would be biggest, right? 9's bigger than 3. But since they're negative, you must think in reverse. -9 is the smallest. So -9 is going to come first, followed by -3. All right, and now I have them in least greatest order. Now, when we go down here, we're going to have you try a couple. So the first thing I want you to do is try problem F. Now, you can use a number line if you want, but I am not going to go over it that way because, you know what, you need to be able to do these without a number line. So remember, you are trying F first. Oh, hold on, where's my pen? Come on, right. All right, so you are doing problem F. Pause the video. Don't do E yet. Pause the video. When you're done, restart it. Go. All right, let's see how you did. So you had to, in problem F, put that set of integers from least to greatest order. So remember what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw my 5 blanks since there's 5 integers. And I'm going to take care of my positives first because I don't have to think too hard about those. So if I circle my positives, I have 30, 12, and 3. So that's going to be 3, 12, and 30. So I'm done thinking about those guys. They're gone, and I only have to worry about 2 negatives. Now remember, think in reverse. If these guys were positives, 18 would be bigger, right? But since they're negatives, it's going to be least. So -18 is first, followed by -6 second. So that's the answer you should have for that one. Now the reason why I saved E for last is because, and I'm going to point this out so you don't get tricked in the video, is notice it says order them from greatest to least. So you can use a number line if you want. I'm not going to, but make sure your answers start with the biggest and end with the smallest. All right, pause problem E and restart it when you're done. Go. Okay, let's see how you did. So I'm going to draw my blanks, and this time to help me remember, because your brain is so wired to do least to greatest, it's hard to break away from that. So I'm going to put my G here for greatest and my L here for least. So now my trick for getting past that is I actually do least to greatest, but then I just start writing them over on the least side and work my way to the left. So let me start. Let me split the positives and negatives. I've got two positives, so 3 and 11. So since they're greatest, that means 3 would be here and 11 would be here, since 11 is the biggest. That means my two negatives need to go, I'll highlight them here, they need to go last. So my least number, my smallest, has to be here. So I'm going to think in reverse. So normally, if these were positives, 4 would be less than 25. But since they're negatives, it's going to be greater. That means this is the least number. It's the lowest number. So you should have negative 25 as least. And then that means negative 4 is here. All right, if you had that right, give yourself a C. If not, make sure you fix it. And last, just to show you a real-world example of these, we'll go over example 4. And it says, the table shows the lowest elevation for several continents. Order the elevations from least to greatest. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Take a look at the table. I am actually going to do my work next to the table. So I'm going to draw some lines here for each spot on the table. And I know I'm going to do least up here to greatest down here. Now, as I do this, I also notice they're all negatives. So I have to think in reverse for everything. So if I'm going to start with the least, I am going with the numbers that would be biggest if they were positive. And the one that would be biggest if it was positive would be 418. So since it's negative, it's going to be least. Then I'd go to the next one, which is negative 156. And I go to the next one, which is negative 105. Now, I'm basically going with the numbers that look biggest if they're positive first. So then I'd go to the 86, so it's negative 86, followed by negative 28. And the greatest is the one that looks the smallest, the negative 12. All right, and that's it. So remember, when you're comparing negatives, think in reverse. Sometimes it hurts your brain to do that. If you were absent, I'm sure you have some of the guided practice problems to do, if not all of them. As always, thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, make sure you ask me for help. See you later.